Today I'm going to make Yoda's lightsaber. For this build, I used EVA foam dowels, craft foam, super glue, knurled screws, PVC pipe cutter, a wooden dowel, reflective tape, clear packing tape, foil tape, paint, cutting tools, sanding tools, safety gear, a kyber crystal, scissors, razor pens, and a box cutter. I started off thinking that I was going to make this out of foam dowels, but that would have required a lot of unnecessary painting, so instead, I went with PVC. So I cut a section of that, gonna use the PVC cutter. It can take a little bit of elbow grease to chop through the PVC pipe, but it'll get there eventually. That's about the length I want. I rarely get a straight cut out of the PVC cutter, so I brought that piece over to the belt sander. First, I cleaned off some of the paint that was left on there from a previous project so that I wouldn't get any wrinkles in the top coat. Then I sanded the slanted cut flat, and before bringing it back over to the well-lit part of the workshop, I drilled a little hole in the side towards one end, where one of the buttons will go later. This project is going to make heavy use of foil tape so that I don't have to paint. This was actually used on Luke's original lightsaber in Star Wars New Hope to cover up the Graflex logo on the side of his saber, because English isn't really a thing in Star Wars. I cut a length of foil tape to match my PVC. Rather than wrapping the whole thing, I'm only going to cover the parts that are going to be visible because I'm going to leave some exposed PVC pipe underneath the grips. This is because some glue has trouble attaching to the foil tape. It's essentially a laminated surface, which isn't great for gluing. So I cut a half strip for the top, then I cut long strips for the bottom end of it, and placed 4 of those strips along the hilt. These are the areas in between the grips. Then I wrapped either end of the grip portion with a strip of tape, because those areas are also going to be exposed. For the grip pieces, I'm using 2mm craft foam. It comes in these really long rolls for only $8, but this is all that remains. This first one is going to be the middle band. You can see how that covers up the exposed PVC. Took a couple of tries to trim it down to size, but eventually I got there. I super glued that on. Then I cut 4 identical rectangular strips for the grip pieces, and I glued those on. All right, starting to come together. Next, for the detail on the middle band, I'm going to use this EVA foam offcut, which I cut from a larger sheet of foam with a sharpened pipe to be part of the activation switch. I'm going to glue that towards the top of the strip, and then I'm going to take this 4mm craft foam offcut and glue that to the bottom of the middle band, directly in line with the circular part. Then I'm going to take some gray 4mm foam and glue it just underneath the circle to create a little bit of detail. After those were on there, I wrapped them in a strip of 2mm craft foam, and when the glue had set, I trimmed it to match the detail on Yoda's lightsaber. About this time, I noticed that the center band was looking kind of thin and realized that it was actually multi-layered. So I cut another strip of black foam, slightly narrower than the first one, and laid it on top. Then I took a knurled screw and screwed it into the hole that I drilled earlier. These are usually used as computer feet, but not today. After that, I looked for a foam circle offcut that matched the internal diameter of the tube so that I could use it as a grip to hold in the blade, but I soon realized that by some coincidence I'd actually chosen a diameter PVC pipe that perfectly matched an EVA foam dowel, the kind you can get at any craft store. See, there was a reason that I mentioned that in the opening list. It's not just stock footage. I cut several pieces to use as end caps and internal spacers. Or bracers? Either or, and to hold the blade in place. I traced what would eventually become the blade onto the center of the circle, and then I cut it out using a leather hole punch, but any sharpened pipe that's the correct diameter will do. I just happened to find this in my leatherworking kit. I pressed the hole punch into the foam and worked it back and forth until I'd punched a hole in the middle. I saved the offcut for future projects. I repeated that step on the others. I put that on the inside of the bottom of the saber, and then to close it off, I used a film can lid, which is a relic from a bygone era. Remember film? I remember. I love finding disposable cameras that I've forgotten about though. It's like a time capsule of the 90s. Because it's a little too dark, I cut a circular piece of foil tape and applied it to the end. Then I took a second foam donut and pressed it into the top of the saber. Because the emitter has multiple stacked circles of different diameters, I repeated the foam donut making technique with a slightly narrower black foam dowel. I super glued that on, and then I used this random camera part as the top of the emitter. I glued the whole assembly in place, and then I used flat black paint to cover up the exposed white foam. I was hoping to avoid painting on this build, but flat black dries pretty quickly, so turned out not to be an issue. So I really hope we get to see Grogu using the lightsaber in future episodes, although it was left kind of ambiguous at the end of the episode. And I think that was not necessarily the best decision on Luke's part, to be like, well, you can have the sword or the armor. So you're giving a baby a lightsaber, but not the lightsaber repellent chainmail. What do you think is gonna happen, Luke? There's 1.5 Jedi in the entire galaxy. Suddenly you have a Padawan and you're not gonna give him the lightsaber repellent chainmail. What are you thinking? God damn, dude. Like, lightsaber repellent armor seems like a pretty good idea. Bet that's something Anakin wishes he had. Wait, it repels blasters too, though. So I bet every Jedi wishes they had that. Why isn't that more of a thing in Star Wars? This opens up, this pokes a lot of holes in your movies, George. As if there weren't a million already. Just go with it. You're thinking too hard about this. What was I doing? Making a video. Let's get back into it. For the final bit of shielding on the emitter, I cut up a piece of What the Foam, which is like a really dense type of foam. You can get it on Amazon. Another prop maker sent me a whole bunch, and I rarely use it because it's almost too sturdy. But this is one of those applications where regular foam is too weak. So I heated that up with my heat gun, shaped it into a horseshoe shape, stuck it in another PVC pipe while it cooled so that it would retain that shape, and then I covered it in foil tape, all except for the area that needs to be glued to the emitter. I glued that on. I think I actually glued it on the wrong side. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Luckily, the glue didn't dry immediately, so I quickly switched it to the other side. And that was it for the hilt. Now for the blade, I found a dowel that would fit snugly into the saber, cut it to length, and I wrapped it with reflective safety tape. Because the adhesion on that tape isn't fantastic over a curved surface, I then wrapped it with clear packaging tape, which holds a lot better. I know that the LED blades are popular, but in photographs, those don't really look so good. It's a thing with camera flashes canceling out the LED blades, which really only look good in low light. But reflective tape will throw nearly 100% of that flashbulb light straight back into the camera, actually causing what would be considered a lens flare, but it ends up looking like actual lightsabers. So that's what I've been doing. Hey, it was good enough for the original trilogy. Good enough for me. Con photographers hate me. They're also easier for blade tracking if you want to add the effect over it. If you want to get really creative, you can put a motor in there to make it spin, and that'll give it that sort of oscillating look, which I did in my Ray Saber build, and I really like it. I think that's my favorite lightsaber blade look that I've ever done. And of course, all lightsabers need a kyber crystal. This I had to steal from a Jedi, but just so that you don't have to go through all that, they're also available in my Etsy store, link below. Shameless product placement. And there we go. That's how to make Yoda's lightsaber. Hey everybody, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, then you can show your support by hitting the like, subscribe, and bell icon to be notified of future uploads. If you're interested in supporting the channel, then you can check out the link in the description down below for patron channel services. Anything pledged goes towards improving the video quality, prop quality, and shop equipment, which allows me to produce higher quality content for you all to enjoy. Alright, happy crafting, see you later.